drop site, they say China invokes blocking statute for the first time. China's Ministry of Commerce has for the first time activated its 2021 blocking rules, ordering all Chinese firms and individuals not to comply with U.S. sanctions targeting 5 independent Chinese oil refineries accused of purchasing Iranian crude. Beijing called the U.S. measure imposed under 2 executive orders an unjustified and improper use of extraterritorial law. The move puts multinational companies operating in both markets in direct legal conflict. Compliance with U.S. sanctions now risks violating Chinese law and vice versa. Global banks and firms with dollar exposure face secondary sanctions risk if they continue dealing with the affected refineries.
Right now, I have to tell you, though, as an American economist, worked here all my life, and I'm glad about that, that this is embarrassing, that this is not the way international trade ought to be conducted. And it looks to the whole world, my colleagues around the world, including many that are very friendly to the United States, it really looks like a country that can't compete in the old ways, having to do it in these ways. And when you look at it that way, then the sympathy begins to move towards China as being the victim of this change. And they're all worried that they will be the next victim of the change. And it's shifting the whole world balance in ways that if I were a policymaker would worry me.
So what the Chinese have just done is a very serious challenge to the U.S. policies of economic sanctions. So far, the U.S. has always issued economic sanctions and the world has always followed. But now with the challenge that the Chinese government is refusing to apply the economic sanctions, it tests the U.S. limit and ability to use economic sanctions to its limits. Because if the U.S. fails to challenge the challenge put in place by the Chinese government to respect and honor U.S. sanctions, it means automatically the U.S. sanctions will crumble and made futile almost all around the world. So this is a very important moment in the world of global economy, and we have to watch this closely. U.S. Secretary of State Rubio was asked about this particular move from Beijing, and this is what he had to say, putting the blame on China to be the one to put an influence on Iran in order to bring about a resolution to the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz.
Secretary, I have a question on Iran-China relations.
Okay.
What's your reaction to Iranian foreign minister visit to China? Also, Beijing instructed its firms to ignore U.S. sanctions. Could you also address that?
Well, I'll direct you to Treasury on that front. There are options that we have. If you ignore our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions. And I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things, for symbolic purposes. On the first point about the visit, it's fine. I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated. You're the bad guy in this. You guys should not be blowing up ships. You should not be putting mines. You should not be trying to hold hostage the global economy. I hope the Chinese bring, whether it's done privately, but I hope it's done directly, that's the message they deliver to them. As I outlined earlier today, China is an export-driven economy. Okay, I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the straits. It's harming China as well. The gentleman in the red tie, right there. Yes, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Liz Landers with PBS NewsHour.
Okay.
Another question about the China-Iran relationship. You said at the beginning of your comments at the top that every single financial situation will be targeted. Does that include Chinese banks? Would the president sanction?
We're going to enforce our sanctions. I don't have an announcement for you. That will have to come from Treasury. But we have sanctions in place. And sanctions don't mean anything unless, you're going to do something about them. So I think that's been clear. I think the Treasury will follow up with any specific announcements. Suffice it to say, we're serious about our sanctions. Then a cost needs to be imposed on Iran for what they are doing. Otherwise, if they get away with this, guys, if they get away with pulling this thing off without paying a price for it and backing down, you're going to see multiple places around the world where other countries are going to be tempted to do the same. This is unacceptable. Again, I want to reiterate the point. We keep arguing back and forth about the war and the shooting and this and that and the other. These guys have shut down an international waterway. The Straits of Hormuz do not belong to Iran. They don't have a right to shut it down and blow up ships and lay mines. And that's what they've done. That needs to be addressed. Otherwise, and it cannot be normalized. Under no circumstances can we live in a world where we accept, okay, this is normal. You have to coordinate with Iran. You have to pay them a toll in order to go through the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is that unacceptable in the Straits, you're creating a precedent that could be repeated in multiple other places around the world. The whole world should join us in this condemnation, and the whole world should join us in doing something about it, by the way. It shouldn't just be us. We're hoping to get countries. We're going to give them a chance to do something about it at the United Nations.
So help us understand, if you could, the significance of this action from the Chinese.
Well, my judgment is it's very significant. It marks a change in the way that the Chinese are approaching what has been the American foreign policy now for quite some years. I would describe that policy as very provocative interferences in a way previous American governments have not felt entitled to do. The Trump administration prides itself on doing what previous governments didn't do. I mean, the war in Iran is a grosser example of all of that. And what the Chinese have done until now, excuse me, is tiptoe around it, make believe they didn't know about it, urge their banks and others to find evasive ways of getting around it. Now, that is most of the time enough. Sanctions are a very crude instrument. We have been applying sanctions as a nation, and the United States does that more than any other country on earth. Nobody else is even close. We have been applying sanctions, as folks know, on Cuba, on North Korea, on Russia for years and years and years, and they have found very quickly ways around it. And so they can pretend not to notice and get around it, and no more feathers get ruffled. What the Chinese just did in the clip that you just showed us was to say, if you allow me to paraphrase our president, no more Mr. Nice Guy. We are not going to, tiptoe around you. We are simply saying to the world, no more. We, the Chinese government, will not permit our banks to be threatened in this way, to be inconvenienced, it costs a little to get around sanctions. It's not that it's free, it's a nuisance. But we're not going to allow that anymore, and we're serving notice on the whole world that this is no longer our problem. We are not alone. The Chinese going to figure out how to dance around Mr. Trump. We're throwing down a kind of gauntlet, if you will, saying no. And so this raises enormous questions, because now the next issue is, how seriously will the Chinese government pursue any Chinese or other entity that conforms to what the United States wants and thereby violates what the Chinese just did? So we'll see. And, it's another one of these little, not so little, maneuvers around the chessboard. And we all wonder who's going to yell uncle first.
Through the Strait of Hormuz. The economic damage is being felt around the world. So America needs to fix this problem caused by its attack on Iran 2 months ago. The military has launched Project Freedom to try to reopen the waterway, and they claim Iran is no longer in control of the strait.
As a direct gift from the United States to the world, we have established a powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait.
The normal traffic separation scheme lanes in the strait for maritime vessels are shown here in white. The black lines show the apparent Iranian guidance for non-hostile shipping, with the likely US route shown here in red. but only 2 tankers made it through that way yesterday. It was 130 a day before the war.
You can't have a situation.
America's top diplomat says the US is not restarting hostilities.
This is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots. But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency.